glasses up.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the show. This week we have a very special guest, Mr. Scott Phillips. Scott, appreciate you coming in, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we've got an exponential amount of stuff to talk about. Scott is involved with the Way Down Film Festival, and we're going to get to exactly how in just a little bit. I'll get a little bit about your background.
I attended the University of Georgia, the Grady Journalism School.
Cool.
And so my undergrad degree was actually in newspaper journalism. So how antiquated of a degree is that becoming these days, sadly. When I wrote for the student newspaper, of course, everybody wanted to write sports.
Right.
Everybody wanted to be on the sideline for the Georgia games and write sports. And so the place that they had an opening was entertainment. And so I became the film critic, or one of the film critics for the Red and Black student newspaper.
Now, is that just like the
there.
only opening that you could get?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is Roger Ebert, the super famous film critic, that is the same thing that happened to him when he went to the Chicago Tribune.
Wow.
He went to get a job to be a reporter. And they said, well, we don't have any reporter jobs available, but we do need somebody to write about movies. Wow. And so I think our careers diverged a little bit after that with his Pulitzer Prize and multi-million-dollar empire. But that is the way that his career got started. And so, of course, eventually I moved on to, covering city council and doing news stories and things like that. But I always have had a love of film. And so very early on, matter of fact, I was recently cleaning some stuff out at my mom's house and found some movie reviews from 1988 that I had written for the newspaper. So that was where it all began. And then actually I wound up going to law school. And so my day job that pays for everything, I guess, is I'm an attorney here in Columbus. Wow. But I enjoy the film side of it.
We don't hold that against him. Somebody had to make a lawyer joke at that point.
Yeah, I was about to say everybody else will, so that's okay.
I have some really good lawyer jokes, but we'll save that for off camera. Now, I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit here because I want to know a lot about you. I want to know a lot about the Way Down Film Festival because for any of you who know me, I'm a musician, but I've done some very, very entry-level movie stuff. But here's a guy who's involved with, like, the real deal. So tell me, okay, let's start with how the Way Down Film Festival got started.
Okay, sure. I think about those sports coaches, that talk about you make your own luck.
Right.
Like you put yourself in the position to get involved in something. Mm-hmm. And so folks can say it was luck that you got involved, but if you hadn't been doing what you were doing, it never would have happened for you.
Exactly.
And so this is an example of that. I write a column for Columbus in the Valley magazine on film. It's called The Cinephiles, Files. And I was simply going to cover it. I was simply going to write about the Way Down Film Festival. And so J.C. Jenkins, one of the founders of the festival, reached out to me. We got together and went to lunch. and they were already establishing the festival. It was
Right.
going to happen when I was walking in the door.
Right,
So
yeah.
they had already, laid the foundation. When I say they, it's J.C. Jenkins, Cora King, and Stacy Cunningham. They're the three
And a
founders.
shout out to them. Great job, y'all.
Yes, absolutely. And so when I met with JC, we just kind of clicked. I mean, we seemed to be on the same wavelength about everything. I'm sure she could detect my passion for
Right.
film and everything like that. And so she asked me to come to a follow-up meeting with them.
Fine.
And so my article for Columbus in the Valley magazine ballooned into, full-blown involvement with the festival itself.
Wow. Now I'm assuming that that a lot of people have submitted for the festival.
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, I want to say, I think I saw about 125 short films.
Wow.
Last year, and so some of them were maybe as short as 3 or 4 minutes, and then some of them were as
Right,
long as
yeah.
25 minutes. So it was hour upon hour of content, and one kind of misconception I think about the festival last year was that it was somehow just for local artists or just for regional filmmakers, and that like if you were in the area, you submitted a film, it got in, and you came to the film festival. And in reality, I mean, we received submissions from filmmakers in New York, filmmakers in Los Angeles. We had one filmmaker who was a lot of fun, who attended last year, who is actually from Italy.
Wow.
And came in from London for the film festival. And so we received, like I said, 125-ish submissions. And I would say, I think the final slate was 42 of them wound up being played at the festival. And so submissions for this year's festival are open right now. And we're already getting movies in, and the watching has begun.
So now, how long are the submissions open? Because some of you might be some.
Yeah,
filmmakers.
no, absolutely. I would love to think that there's some filmmakers out there who would see this and be interested. We have 2 platforms that you can submit on. There's filmfreeway.com and withoutabox.com. And so I believe this year we shifted our timetable a little bit. And so the kind of early submissions deadline is June 1st. That's like our
Okay.
cheapest submission fee if you
Right.
get in early. And then if you just pay like $10 more, you can extend that deadline all the way to July 31st.
Cool.
So the absolute cutoff is July 31st. And then, of course, our goal as the programmers and the screeners for the festival is that we're keeping pace with the submissions so that we're ready a couple of weeks after that final deadline to announce the slate of movies that are going to play.
Right. Yeah.
So, because we really like to give the filmmakers enough notice
Yeah.
that they can come, because that's one of the really enjoyable things about a festival is to have the actual creatives there.
Now this is like on the same level as like Cannes, right? Or some of the other film festivals.
Well, I mean, in the sense of if you take away the prestige factor of being a, a multi-decades old film festival, but yeah, absolutely. One of the things that really impressed me about the ladies that established the festival is just how professionally it was done.
Yeah.
The corporate sponsorships, the grant money that was obtained, having the Springer as your venue.
Yeah.
I mean, most film festivals, even in big cities, are in like a local movie theater, like you would figure.
Right.
And last year, the filmmakers were just thrilled with the venue. That was one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got was, look at this beautiful place that my film played.
Right.
And so, I think we're getting a foothold in this and can certainly establish ourselves as well as any other film festival in the country. And the difference is our focus is short films. We are a
Right.
competition festival.
Yeah.
Submit your short film, and if you get in, there's a possibility that you will win some of the awards and cash prizes that we offer. And so we aren't going to be involved in feature films.
Right.
We're continuing to emphasize short films, but sky's the limit.
And that's good though, because there might be some people saying Columbus. We're in Columbus, so I'm speaking to you, Columbus folks, and anybody who sees this. But you focus on short film, so that's way easier for somebody starting out to do.
Right.
So you don't have to have say we were talking about Saving Private Ryan to get
Right.
into this thing.
Right. Well, it's both the nice thing about doing it and also sometimes the difficult thing about marketing it, because it's a little bit easier on the legal logistics, because usually if it's a short film, the filmmaker owns the film.
Right.
So if they submit it, then obviously they're giving us permission to show it
Yeah.
if it gets into the competition. And so the rights side, the legal licensing side of things is far easier when you're dealing with short films.
Right,
However, you don't have the ability to put up on your marquee, hey, we're showing Steven Spielberg's latest movie,
Yeah.
so everybody come down in droves to come see the film. By definition, it's mostly unknown filmmakers.
Right.
So it's nice on the submission side, but it can be a little bit more of a challenge to market it. And that was one of the things that really impressed me, was just how Columbus came out and supported it. I mean,
Yeah.
I had told the ladies who founded the festival, because probably of all of us, I'm the one that goes to the most festivals.
Right, yeah.
And I said, look, I've been at festivals where the filmmakers outnumbered the audience. So, don't get discouraged if the first year it just doesn't really go.
Right.
And I think Friday night, 250 people were probably there for the first screening. So I mean, Columbus really rallied and really came out and really supported it. And so we were, thrilled beyond words with how the first year went.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now tell me some of your experiences of you touched on it just now, but some of your experiences of going around to these different festivals. What's that like?
Yeah, the interesting thing is a film festival kind of develops a vibe. A film festival almost kind of has like a personality.
Right.
And so I have really enjoyed like regional film festivals, like the film festival in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
There's a film festival there the first weekend of April every year, and they just do a super job of it. And the filmmakers are so accessible, and you have the ability to talk to people about their movies. If you're a big fan, you can get things signed and all of that.
Yeah.
But part of what I do now when I go to a film festival is I'm headhunting for our festival. I attend the short films blocks. And if I see something that is particularly impressive, I'll approach the filmmaker and say, hey, I really think you ought to give serious consideration for submitting it to our festival.
Right.
And, you got to be a little bit careful with that, because it costs them money to submit it.
Right.
And so you can't sit there and guarantee them that they're getting in, because you haven't seen the rest of the submissions.
Right.
But at the same time, you're telling them, as compared to what made the cut last year, you
Yeah.
would be in the thick of it.
Right.
And so that is what I do as well when I go to some of those festivals, is kind of headhunt for the Way Down Film Festival. And then occasionally I just go as a fan. I'm going to be going to Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas in September, and it's going to be the first time that I'll be going as press to Fantastic Fest, and it's the biggest genre film festival in the country.
Wow.
And so it's where John Wick had its world premiere. Arrival premiered there last year, and so that will not be to go headhunt talent. It will be to just go enjoy movies for a change.
And that's cool. It's like being a musician and going around looking for band members, but sometimes you just get to enjoy a Bruce Springsteen concert.
Oh, hey, he's my man.
Well,
so you just hit on that.
You probably like the Mr. Phillips is out. He's a critic, so you've never had anybody kind of like try to slide you a couple of dollars.
I was just thinking that somewhere my wife is going, oh no, he just said Bruce Springsteen. now you're not going to talk about film for the next 30 minutes. But
So what do you think of the Magic album?
It is honestly, the Magic album and The Rising are my two favorite albums of his of this century.
Wow.
So I think Magic that is so weird that you would ask me about that. I literally just ordered it on vinyl yesterday.
Nice, because I've got Magic. I don't have The Rising, but is one of the later albums, and I love it.
Yeah.
I used to listen to it back to back to back. It's a great
It
album.
But
is
you
super.
know he's a serious music lover when he says, "I ordered it on
Vinyl."
vinyl."
Or a pretentious hipster. You never know which. Hopefully that's
one of
not
the-
it. This is true.
One of the two. Okay, I guess for the sake of professionalism, we should go back to the movies.
Professionalism.
And actually, that's something I like to touch on too. Is like no matter what you do, because I remember a conversation between some people sometime back who will not be named, and somebody said hey, we're not being very professional, and the other person said, "Well, we ain't professional, so I ain't worried about it." But the way you get to be professional is by being professional, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but and I was discussing this with Scott earlier. I'm going to kind of shift gears because this is a question I really wanted to ask, and actually I did ask them, but I asked him as he has traveled around the country to different film festivals or different places. When we shoot the show here, this is actually just a converted garage, guys. It's nothing that's that great, but how many of these smaller home studios, whether it be in their home, in their garage, or what have you seen pop up?
Yeah, the fascinating thing, at least when I speak with people who do short films, because obviously that's what our festival is.
Right.
So I have the most contact with them. And it tends to be one of two things. They are either a film student
Right.
in a program that gives them access to all of this wonderful equipment, and then their classmates who are
Right.
studying to be cinematographers or sound guys or whatever,
Right.
or it turns into a you work on my movie and I'll work on your movie kind of an arrangement. But then the other segment is exactly what you were just describing. It's the fact that these days, you have enough technology on your iPhone to shoot a film.
Right.
And you can go home and pick the editing suite that you prefer and edit the film and, ADR the dialogue after the fact if you
Right.
need to. And so you're right. I mean, I can't remember what the expression is. It's something about we carry more technology in our pocket now than they had for the Apollo launch.
Yeah.
So
Very
it's
true.
so it's very much being used in creative ways, and so if you have actors, I think that's probably the key. If you have access to maybe community theater, to actors who are willing to come perform in your production,
Right.
you can fairly well shoot a film very inexpensively these days. Obviously, if you have to hire the in front of the camera talent,
Right.
then that changes things. But technology-wise, it's just amazing what you can do.
And this is something I've preached before a long time ago. I think when Shane was on, is that there are people who probably don't think that they can do something like that, like make a movie or whatever. But really, in this day and age, every computer comes with a basic program that comes with Windows Movie Maker.
Right.
And and most filmmakers do not use that because they're much better programs. But if you just want to put something together just to practice, everybody's got a cell phone, everybody's got a computer. The only thing that you need is the actors. And if you have to use your sister, then
Exactly.
you can make a movie. And
Exactly.
doesn't mean it's going to be something that you can show people, but this practice is a stepping stone. Going back a little bit. Tell me about your experiences with being a movie critic.
Yeah, I obviously, as I'd said, it started when I was at the student newspaper at Georgia, and then actually I attended a film screening. And it has always been my habit, because I know what a thankless task that is.
Right.
And now I know even more what all goes into doing it. But it's always my habit to go up to the person who put on the screening and just thank them. Just say,
Right.
thanks so much for putting in all the time to do this. I know that, not that many people necessarily come out because it's probably an obscure film that they're showing.
Right.
But, thanks so much for bringing that to town. And turns out that the person that I was talking to has a film site and is himself a writer about film. And so we struck up a friendship. and mini lunches and all of that. And he said, would you think about writing for our site? And it is filmdispenser.com is the name of the site. And so I began writing for Film Dispenser, and then was asked to write the column for Columbus in the Valley magazine here in town. And so it's kind of one of those things like what you were just saying about, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And hopefully with my journalism background and education, my early reviews weren't horrible,
Right.
but you learn from doing it.
Yeah.
And so it has grown over the years for me. And last year I was inducted into the Georgia Film Critics Association.
Nice.
And so, it's a lot of fun.
Now, do you focus on any particular genre when you're doing that? Because, and we talked off camera a little bit that your favorite genre is horror, which
Definitely one of them, yeah.
do you just whatever comes across your desk?
Yeah, the interesting thing is once you get on a few lists, I guess you would say, as somebody who's actually going to follow through, somebody who's actually going to review the movie, actually do what he commits to do, then production companies contact me.
Wow.
And so I get emails every week, would you like to watch this new film that we have coming out and review it? And so the main thing that you have to do is, honor your commitments. If you say yes, then watch it and write about it. Don't say yes, watch a bunch of free movies, and then not, do your end of the bargain by writing about it. Now, of course, it goes without saying that something like, I don't know, Fast and Furious or Doctor Strange or something like that, they don't need my review to succeed. Somehow the Marvel empire will still march on, even if I don't review their film. And so with piracy concerns, the big blockbusters do not show up in my email inbox. It is mostly the indie films, the documentaries, the foreign films, which is a lot of my favorite stuff that I see in the course of a year. And so the nicest thing that comes with having done this for a while is just access.
Right.
Just having that access, because otherwise it can be challenging being in a market the size of Columbus and trying to cover things like you're an Atlanta critic.
Right.
And so thankfully, with technology being what it is and making contacts with these production companies, I can at least attempt to keep up with the folks who are, in the bigger cities across the country.
Right. Now, and about Marvel marching on either way, I think maybe some of those big epic movies could use a little film critic.
Yeah. It's like I tell my friends, and it's funny because I was the generation, I'm 48 years old, and so I was the generation that when we were kids reading comic books, we were like, man, wouldn't it be cool if they had a movie of the X-Men?
Right.
And not like what we called a cartoon.
Right.
Not a cartoon movie, a live action movie. And so then sure enough, they granted our wish, and then now we get about one every 6 months, whether you need it or not. And so I tell my friends, I say, all you have to know is there are a bunch of people who are going after a guy who's got a thing, whatever the thing may be, that's going to end the world.
Wow.
And
that
that's
pretty
all
much
of them.
sums it up.
But they're fun. I'm just kidding. They're fun.
I just saw, I haven't seen a lot of the Marvel movies. I've never been a huge Marvel fan.
Right.
I've always felt that there were too many superheroes all running alongside. I'll take him over here. You take him over. Whereas
Right.
like Superman or Batman is like a solitary hero going out and doing things, and that's what I prefer because you could focus on this one guy.
Right.
And although Marvel, I got to say, has done a much better job of making movies of their characters than DC has.
Right.
Although I really liked Batman versus Superman. Some people would say I'm a moron.
To me, the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy is just head and shoulders above everything else. And then there are the Marvel movies, and then, yes, they're the DC movies coming after that. So, but, I have hope. Wonder Woman is this summer.
It's looking good.
Yeah, I hope so. I would love to think that a female-driven franchise would succeed.
Right.
I hate to think in this day and time that that's really going to be some kind of an issue.
And
So I hope it takes off in a big way.
But it's like back in the 70s, Linda Carter was Wonder Woman, and that was a hit show. I mean, there's no
absolutely.
reason, like, in this day and age, there's a lot of talk of gender and all that stuff. But, you're talking about a comic book hero. that people would love to see on screen, and there shouldn't even be a second thought of making the movie. It should have been done long ago. Black Widow.
But Linda Carter, when she did Wonder Woman, was not popular because of Wonder Woman. Linda Carter was popular because Linda Carter.
Well, yeah.
Right.
I had her poster in my room. I know. But yeah, I mean, I understand. I mean, now the storylines are getting more. I guess I wouldn't say complicated, but I'd say more in depth these days.
Yeah.
Right.
And as far as when you get a lot of the, I don't want to say superheroes, a lot of different characters,
Right.
the storyline gets kind of diluted.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, as in, which is why you probably prefer Superman versus Batman.
Yeah.
It's a little more focused.
Right.
Well, and you know, we've entered an interesting kind of phase in film where, you know, go back to kind of the golden era of film, and it was very star driven. It was, you know, the new Cary Grant movie, the new Jimmy Stewart movie, the new Clark Gable movie, or, you know, whomever.
Bogart.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Grace Kelly and all of that, and that continued on into, you know, the new Bruce Willis film, the new Arnold Schwarzenegger film, the new Tom Cruise film. But what we've seen over the last probably 10 years is much less star driven and much more what they refer to as IP, you know, intellectual property driven.
Right.
It's something that has a built-in audience. What can we put out there that already has an established built-in audience? Because if I'm going to spend $200 million making a movie, I need a guarantee that people are going to come see it. So I'm going to hit an audience that is already established through Twilight novels, Harry Potter novels, all that kind of stuff.
Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, was Harry Potter a huge hit because Daniel Radcliffe was in it?
Right.
No, it was a huge hit because it was Harry Potter.
Right,
And so he's riding that train to a career, and deservedly so. But my point is that it's much more driven by the concept these days than it is by who's in it.
Do you think that that's why they keep rebooting the same stuff over and over again?
Absolutely, hoping that it will, you know, catch on and find, you know, new life. I don't know if either one of you all saw Ghost in the Shell, the Scarlett Johansson film that came out recently. I mean, you could just tell from the way that it was put together that they already had the sequels figured out. I mean, they were looking to, you know, to create a franchise, and then it bombed. And so that's not going to happen anymore. And but yeah, you can tell that they're just trying to choose properties that can turn into just, you know, big ongoing money makers.
Right.
And as he has gone over this list of actors, I know right now the millennials and above right now are going, who is he talking about? Because they do that to me at work all the time. Yeah, you know,
Exactly.
oh, so and so passed. Who is that?
Yeah.
Dick Van Dyke. You don't. Who is that? But do you find that the films that were made when we were growing up, the classics is what we like to call them, that these days that they are really trying to take these and just make a little tweak to them and put them out as something new?
Sure. And it's also, you know, if you show somebody in today's target demographic, you know, teens, late teens, you know, early 20s, the people that they're really trying to get into the theater, if you show them a film from the 1980s, the reaction is almost like, you know, because it doesn't have the frenetic quick cuts. It doesn't have the, well, what they call a needle drop soundtrack, meaning that, you know, every other moment is some big pop song blasting out of the movie. And so, you know, they think it's a snooze. You know, most of the time they're like, well, I mean, it was okay, but I don't see why it's a big deal. And so very much, you know, modern filmmaking is kind of taking the old ideas and applying all of the, you know, quick cut, you know, no shots longer than about 6 seconds editing technique of creating one of these frenetic, you know, fast and furious films and selling it to the young audience.
One thing I was talking to my brother about some time back, and it's kind of at least for me, kind of falls into that, is like today everything's got to be an absolute epic. It's like, and like it's gotten to the point where if somebody puts together a movie like Casablanca, it wouldn't do well. I mean, it would with some people, but it would not be an epic. Do you think that there's ever a time that this will implode and they'll have to just stop doing these epics and they'll have to actually start making real movies again?
Obviously it's going to be dictated by the box office.
Right,
And
right.
so the question is just, where is the bottom of that particular well?
Right.
The first Marvel movie that just tanks and the whole industry is going to start second guessing everything.
Yeah.
The Sure Thing didn't make us $700 million worldwide
Right,
like it
yeah.
normally does. So what are we going to do now? But and that's one of the interesting things that I really enjoy about short films and the films that we bring to something like the Way Down Film Festival
Right.
is because of the budget restrictions, because of the restrictions in the amount of time that they had to shoot it. It's back to basics when it comes to storytelling. It's very
Right.
usually usually it's very character driven and very focused, because you may only have 7 minutes to tell your story.
Right,
You may only
right.
have 12 minutes to tell your story. Whereas I don't know if one of those Marvel movies is clocked in under 2 hours and 15 minutes in the last 10 years.
Right.
And so I was joking with somebody before last year's festival, and they were like, well, I don't really know all that much about short films. I don't really know if I would like it. And I said, well, look at it this way. The nice thing about a short film is if you're watching one and you hate it, just wait about 7 or 8 minutes and somebody
over.
else's movie is going to start playing. So, you'll have the chance to see, maybe 7, 8, 9
Right,
films in the course of a single programming block. And you're certainly going to find plenty to enjoy in each one of the blocks. So.
And they're friendly to today's attention span.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I found myself, if there was, let's say, nothing on television,
Right,
and,
right.
and I was actually shocked because I never meant to go to short films, but at that time I was just playing around and I looked on Vimeo and it was just one short film after another, and it was absolutely amazing. And
Absolutely. It is, short filmmaking is still essentially resume for a filmmaker.
Right.
That's what it is. It's taking a limited budget, a limited amount of time to shoot something, and trying to create an impression that then investors will want to give you money to make a feature-length film.
Right.
In fact, a number of filmmakers, you'll talk to them and they'll say, well, my short film is a proof of concept
Right.
of my bigger film. It's just like maybe one scene or one small portion of an overall, 90, 100-minute project that they would
Right.
like to make. And so that is the reason that they're so accessible out there. Everybody's like, please watch it, find
Right.
me, discover me, be willing to fund me. And then, of course, when you have things like Patreon, Kickstarter, those kind of things out there on social media, allowing filmmakers to try to raise the money to make a feature-length film or make maybe a lengthier short film. It's just social media really assists them in that process. But by the same token, it's also becoming really dense out there. I mean, it's becoming a really thick forest out there of short films
Right.
to find the really talented people and to find the folks that you would like to back their project. So it's kind of like it's good that it is becoming more affordable and easier to do and easier to market. But the other thing that it's doing is it's just flooding the market with content.
And that's where things like the film festival come in, because y'all will get it narrowed down to a certain amount of films, the
Right.
best of what you see. And if you like with anything, if you make a really good product, hopefully it'll stand out when they're. I know you watch a lot of movies
Right.
to choose which ones. I know
Right.
they can. It has to get brain fuzzy trying to
and,
decide.
and I will tell you truly, I watched every one of them and every minute of every one of them because I wanted to be able to give the filmmaker feedback if
Right.
they asked me for any. But yeah, that was my favorite thing to hear at last year's Way Down Film Festival, because I sat in the crowd and watched the movies. I wanted to see them up on the big screen
Right,
too,
yeah.
and see if they played as well as I felt like they played when we selected them. And so my favorite thing to hear was people in the crowd around me going, I really didn't expect the movies to be that good. You know, it was like
Yeah.
they expected it to be some kind of, you know, lower quality regional film festival and didn't really expect it to be a professional quality
Right.
production. And so to me, that was the biggest compliment that I could be given, that they didn't
Yeah.
even know they were giving me because they didn't know who I was. But they're sitting around me saying, you know, I didn't have any idea the movies would be this good. And I thought, yes, then, you know, we did our job.
You did,
we got
yeah.
we got it right. And so the way that the division of labor kind of works is we have a few people who serve as like a screening committee.
Right.
And so they're kind of my sounding board. You know, I don't want anybody's admission to the film festival to be decided by one opinion.
Right.
Because,
right.
I mean, it is possible that, you know, I had a terrible day at work and I was in a bad mood and I came home and I watched your movie and thought, oh, God, it's awful.
Yeah.
And moved on. And so then if my screening committee, if the three of them are like, wow, we thought this movie was fabulous.
Right.
Then I'm like, well, maybe I need to go back and give that
Yeah.
another look. And so they're kind of my advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
And then amongst us, we pick the slate of films that will play.
Right.
And then we have celebrity judges, people who are actually in the industry as either producers, actors, directors, writers, what have you. Our group of judges for this year has not yet been, you know, selected, but they pick from the slate that we choose
Right.
who the winners are. So I have absolutely nothing to do with picking who actually wins any of
Right,
the prizes or anything like that, which is the way it should be, because I'm personally involved with all the filmmakers discussing their submissions, seeing if they can come to the festival, you know, discussing what we might talk about during the Q&A sessions, things like that. So I don't need to be one of the deciding
Right,
votes of
yeah.
what wins. That just wouldn't be appropriate.
Now, in the, of course, probably in what was sent in, there was everything from the best to the worst.
Right.
I'm assuming.
Right.
Now, in the ones that you picked, were they all like really strong, or were there some weaker ones up to stronger ones?
You know, it's funny. People were asking me, so, you know, how did you go about doing this when you were watching them? And at first, it was very simple. It was, I can't imagine I'm going to get anything much better than that.
Right.
So in my mind, that's in for now.
Right.
I can't imagine anything much worse than that. So for now, in my mind, that's out, and I hope we get enough good stuff in that I don't have to consider putting that one in. But then you had a pretty big band in the middle
Yeah.
that depended week to week on what came in.
Right.
You know, one minute this film might be in, but then next week you get 5 films that are all better than that one.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it's a no when it was a maybe.
Right.
And so our hope was that, you know, all 40 some odd films that played were really good. Now I'll admit, you know, the best of the best do everything well. Good performances, good directing, well written, well shot. It's just you watch it and just go, wow, you know, that's just a
Yeah.
quality short film. Some of the ones that are in the maybe category that ultimately made it into the festival did a few things really well.
Right.
Like maybe it just looked incredible,
Right.
but the
right.
story was a little bit generic.
Yeah.
But you thought, still, that you know, the cinematography on that is pretty impressive.
Right.
I think it's in. And so that is the way that we wound up judging the films. And then, you know, some strange things happened. Like we got a foreign film submission that honestly the movie was really good, but the subtitling was horrible. I have no idea who they hired to do it, but it was like so bad. I was like, we'll get ridden out of here on a rail. I mean, this is like literally like racially offensive. This is so
wow.
bad. And, you know, just, I mean, think of what you would think about like making fun of, you know, the way an Asian person
Right.
might talk or something. And that's the way the subtitles read. And so I literally wrote that person back and said, hey, I enjoyed your film, but you really need to get somebody else to do your subtitling. Whoever you paid either ripped you off or you used Google Translation and it was terrible or whatever it was. So, you know, occasionally you encountered, things that you didn't expect
Right, yeah.
that disqualified a film. And so, and we got an animation film in last year that was beautiful. It was just amazing looking, you know, computer animation that had been done by somebody at home.
Wow.
And it was incredible. But it was just a story that, you know, every child in the children's block would have been bored to death. You know, it's just that part of it didn't work. And when you see something like that, you then start respecting folks who make those animated films that can both look good, have a good story, keep the attention of the audience. And so it seemed like the ones that were rejected, that there was just always an element to it that just kind of was fatal to its chances of getting in the festival.
So I guess that would be the thing to take away. Guys, if you watch television, I know there are a lot of racially offensive shows out there now, but you can do that after you get your own television show. Meanwhile, when you go to a film festival, keep it clean.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and one thing that I would also tell, just if there are some filmmakers watching, this came up with one film, is be careful of the music that you put in the movie. Because there was one film that had kind of a drug-induced scene where somebody was kind of stumbling through this scene and psychedelic lighting and all of this, but they played Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit.
Oh.
So I wrote them back and I said, do you have the festival rights to Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit? And they're like, no. And I was like, well, you can't just put anybody's song in your movie and have us show it to a paying audience. And so they're like, ooh, I didn't realize that. And so that means that, you know, they kind of had to rework their film to be able to submit it to any kind of a festival.
Yeah,
so
copyright is a very sticky thing these days.
Yes, absolutely. Which is why you see so much original music in short films. You know, they may they may have friends that have a band, and so they get them to cut the theme song or what have you, and so that's no problem. But you've got to be careful if you're putting anybody else's, you know, copyrighted material into your short film, that you're getting the rights, or we're not going to be able to touch it.
I guess rule of thumb would be if you are receiving payola on any form, don't use someone else's material because they're going to nail you to the wall.
I have a YouTube channel and I have some of my stuff on there, but I have my band playing "Knocking on Heaven's Door." It's got like 4,000 views over the years now, which is cool. I've nothing else on my channel has anything near that, but you know, it's like I do cover songs, and I was in Vegas one time, and I was just shooting. I did a day trip, weekend trip to Vegas, and it was Bellagio. They have the fountains, and they have and I put it up, and it gets dinged on by YouTube for, you know, copyrighted music. Of course, I'm not getting paid for it. It's just everything on my channel is free, so it's like, you know, they didn't make me take it down.
Right.
But that's really sensitive stuff. That just a recording picked up by your camera can get you in trouble.
Absolutely.
Let alone putting it in your score.
And I know that before we go to our commercial break here and come back and get the dates and so forth, all the vital information we need to get, I know that when we first started our podcast, and we were actually doing it live, Ryan was actually over at my home where I used to live. Right. And it was kind of an open first floor. So my wife was watching television. And there was a television show on. I believe it was Law and Order.
Right.
And, you know, you've got the dun-dun, you know, thing that happens all the time. And that thing went off. And, you know, I uploaded what we had been recording. It wasn't part of it. I mean, it was something you could barely hear in the background. Yeah. But, boy, I got dinged for copyright in a heartbeat.
I'm sure they got programs that pick up all that stuff.
Yes, no doubt. Just a shade less than what the NSA is using to listen to all of us every day.
Maybe a shade less. I'll tell you what, let's check out a commercial, and we'll come back with everything that you need to get involved with, to attend, and to, in every way, be a part of the Way Down Film Festival.
Hello, I'm Catherine Childry with Let's Vocalize. For over 35 years, I've coached vocalists and groups privately. I also perform vocal workshops training choirs. I'd love the opportunity to show you how direction, discipline, vocal health care, and regular practice can drastically improve you, your group, or your choir's performance. Call me at 706-536-6123 or visit us online at www.letsvocalize.com. I'd love to help you offer your best gift.
Yes, Toddy, the chocolate malt in a can.
It's so good hot. It's so good cold.
It hits the spot with young and old.
Yes, toddy pleases everybody. Delicious chocolate malted toddy, made with rich, real milk, not powdered milk.
So come and get it, everybody. It's time to drink your chocolate toddy.
Delicious.
Don't forget to go out and get your chocolate toddy. I'm sure the licensing on
And,
that
you know,
one.
I want to make a comment on that. We just got finished with a whole discussion on copyright. I actually did get permission to use that, ladies
Wow.
and gentlemen. So
I'm surprised it's recent enough where you have to get permission.
no, it's a very vintage commercial. So I wrote the gentleman, and he said, "Yes, you have my permission to
That's awesome.
put on a live stream," and I'm not receiving a dime for it. So. In the meantime, what kind of dates, submission dates? What is the actual film festival? When is it still in October this
Sure.
year?
Yes, absolutely. We're trying to, we want to be very supportive of the other film festivals in Georgia. And so our desire was we didn't want to step on the Macon Film Festival. We didn't want to step on the Savannah Film Festival. And so we kind of have carved out a weekend that doesn't conflict with the other film festivals in Georgia. The Atlanta Film Festival tends to be in March. Macon tends to be at the end of July. We are the weekend of October 13th and 14th. And it's my belief that we're going to try to keep targeting that weekend somewhere in the middle of October moving forward. And then about 2 weeks after ours, the Savannah Film Festival starts up in Savannah. So I hope to go over there and take in some of the stuff that they're going to be showing. They're more of a feature film festival.
And
so
what
we
a city, too.
Yeah, and so we coincide very nicely. As far as for filmmakers, submissions are open now. We are accepting submissions on filmfreeway.com, withoutabox.com. The fee for applying is very competitive. It's not that much, and after the early deadline passes, the fee goes up by about $10. But you're good all the way up to and through July the 31st, submitting a film to the festival, and then we hope our target date is by August the 15th. To be making the announcements of what films will be playing.
Right.
And a lot of that is so that we can coordinate travel with the filmmakers. I mean, to me, one of the most enjoyable aspects of the film festival last year was of the 42-ish short films that we showed, we had over 20 filmmakers there.
Wow.
And that just really heightens the experience for the audience and for everybody. We have a Q&A panel after each short film block.
Right.
We bring the filmmakers who are in attendance up to have a seat up there on the stage at the Springer.
Nice.
And sit there kind of like you and I are doing and discuss their film and get kind of a behind the scenes look at what it was like putting their film together, the challenges that they faced, everything from, budgeting issues to last year we got a couple of good stories about working with kid actors.
Oh.
And it was great. He was telling us the story of every time they were about to roll, camera the twins that they were using for the children just started beating each other up, and they would have to stop filming. And so it's really nice at those Q&As to kind of get a look at the process.
Right. Yeah.
And so our hope is that by making these decisions a little bit earlier than we did last year, that will guarantee even more filmmaker involvement.
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully, if we continue to get the corporate sponsorship, the grant funding, the things that it really takes to make this go, the more of the filmmakers' travel costs that you can kind of help them defray, the more likely they are to show up. So we're hoping this year that, fundraising will allow us to do an even bigger and better version of what we did last year.
And last year,
I don't foresee that being a problem because it's like Scott said earlier. Last year was the first year for the film.
Right.
It is absolutely amazing. The turnout, the excitement, and it just wasn't majority of it. Sure, it was in Columbus and around Columbus, but it was amazing to see, as he said earlier, that you had people just from all over the globe, from the United States, from, he said Italy, from,
Which is cool because that means that people from all over took this very seriously.
Yeah, and we were very well reviewed on those submission websites, which was nice. We got just tons of 5-star reviews about what a wonderful festival it was to go to, how well we treated the filmmakers, which was, what we were aspiring to do.
Right.
And so we're glad that they actually recognized that fact, that they came, that they had a good time, that they felt like that the festival had a good vibe. And so we were a very highly reviewed festival last year, and so that just, helps with the submissions this year if we become a place that the filmmakers want to go. Because, film festivals are huge. I mean, the weekend that we have our film festival here, there will be, 10, 12, 15 other film festivals in other states and cities across the country, if not more. Matter of fact, I have a couple of film festivals that I used to go to that I no longer attend because they fall the weekend of our film festival. So, you're trying to make your mark and put your festival on the map, and especially by having the filmmakers enjoy the experience.
Right,
and if we show the appreciation of the art form that we showed last year, then they're going to want to keep coming for years to come.
Now, there was a question I had. Let's just say Bob makes a movie. He puts it into he submits it to the film festival. It's approved, is accepted, and then say it wins. Where does that filmmaker go after that?
That's a good question. The film that won Best Overall Film last year is a film by the name of Penny and Paul. And the filmmaker is a guy named Brian Rollins. He was a super nice guy. I enjoyed getting to know him at the festival. And he won our top prize. And only after he had won our top prize did he say to me, "This is the first festival I've ever entered."
Wow.
And we were just shocked.
The very first one.
The very first one.
Wow.
But I noticed, we became, Facebook friends and Twitter followers and all the stuff that you do on social media so that I could follow these folks. And the next thing you know, he was in a film festival in London, and he was showing the film all over the country. And his plan was he wanted to obtain the funding to expand that short film ultimately into a feature-length film. It was just kind of a piece of an overall idea that he had. And so many folks, will hope that, you go to that right festival where that right person sees it, and afterward they're coming to you and saying, "Hey, let's talk."
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, their career takes off. I was at Chattanooga discussing our festival with another programmer for another little smaller regional festival in Florida. And he mentioned to me that Barry Jenkins, the filmmaker who made Moonlight, which won Best Picture last year, that Barry Jenkins had a short film in their film festival. That kind of like when nobody was showing anything that he was doing, they showed his short film, and now he comes back every year to be a judge or to be involved in their festival. And so now they have the director of, Best Picture coming to their film festival. So, it's some of these people that have submitted films to our festival, I have no doubt from the talent that was on display that one day, people will be paying to go see their movie at the theater.
They'll be making the epics.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I consider these film festivals so important. At least to me, I know I'm, I guess, not the best intellectual person on these film festivals, but a lot of times it's not the winning, it's just the validation. It's like he said before, he had this gentleman, it was his first time, and I see so many people, they go and they say, "I'm going to put myself out there." And they just want the validation that, hey, you're good, keep going.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, the sky's the limit.
And that can be the difference between a success story and otherwise. Just somebody saying, "Hey, your work is good."
Yeah, it was funny when I was talking with him at the award ceremony at the Loft. I was telling him about a couple of things about his movie that I really liked. You know, I
Right.
thought this worked really well. I thought this was great. And both times he looked at me and he said, man, I really debated whether or not I should put that in there. And I did, do you really think that it works? I wasn't sure if it worked. And so, like what you two are talking about, there's still usually that lack of confidence there to some degree.
Yeah.
And so the validation of getting into a film festival, winning an award at
Yeah.
a film festival can give you the confidence to, you know, move on and potentially have a career in the industry. And the one thing, and I would like to point this out, is, you know, for all of the rap that everybody gets about, you know, people in show business are jerks and, you know, people are conceited and people are arrogant and all of those kind of things. I mean, from our, you know, panel of judges that we had last year, we had Bo Bartlett, we had Richard Lanny with the Fun Academy Film Studio here in town, Justin Price, a number of people who served as our judges, and then the filmmakers themselves, just, you know, so supportive, love the art form, so easy to get along with, just such an enjoyable group of people that I am sure, just like in any profession, that there are people who are jerks in any given profession, but this idea of everybody who wants to be involved in filmmaking is some conceited person. I just, you know, thankfully we have not run into any of that.
Yeah, and it's heartening because the opposite of disheartening, but it's heartening to know that everybody's not like what you see on the movies. You know? And I guess probably when you get into Hollywood and the really high stake, the epics.
Yes,
that's where
the cutthroat part of the business.
Yes.
And, you know, before we begin to go ahead and wrap this up, because I know we're running a little long today, you know, I actually want to mention two things. I pretty much, I want to say I admire Scott a whole lot because Scott reminds me, you know, guys, let me put it this way. If you're watching sports and you watch the baseball game, you know, it's really cool if you want to be the owner and you get shown on screen all the time and you're there for the games and, you know, so forth and so on. Scott's kind of like the scout that goes out that no one ever sees and watches like 15, you know, players play the same position.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's very admirable to me. And also I want to say to each and every one of you guys out there that are, you know, whether it's in this form of art or any other, you know, as of last year, which was when we started this live stream, each and every artist, no matter what they've been in, has always said the same thing, that one of the most important things is networking. And, you know, go out, you know, even if you don't enter the film festival, go to the film festival, meet people. Yeah. And, you know, you can just build relationships and, you know, they can take you anywhere.
And that's a super point. That is one of the things that we were really hoping to foster at the Way Down Film Festival is, you know, it's not just the films. It's not just watching short films, listen to a Q&A, leave. Right. We have, you know, we have receptions. We have a reception on opening night. Last year, I'm not sure where the venue will be this year, but we had a get-together at Meritage after the first night of films. And you're exactly right. We were hoping to kind of provide that networking atmosphere where, you know, you've got a great idea, but you don't have anybody who can shoot it. And then, or you have the ability to shoot something, but you really need somebody to act in it. And maybe, you know, you meet your counterpart that you need to get your project off the ground. And so we really hope that we would help foster that, at least in the local filmmaking community. And when we had the block of content made by local filmmakers, that may have been the most attended block that we had. And so we were thrilled with that because we were hoping that those connections and contacts and just kind of finding people who share your passion, that, you know, that those matches were going to be made at the festival. And, you know, and there's no harm in, you know, entering the film and seeing if you get in. You know, you certainly talk to everybody, even people who make a living making films, and, you know, they learn more from their mistakes than they ever learned from their successes. And so, you know, take a chance and submit it, and you never know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Phillips. Scott, I so much appreciate you coming on.
It was a pleasure being
Scott,
here.
Thank you so much for dropping by.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
You know, we got kind of the same, I guess, I can't remember. We pretty much want to do the same thing as they do, and someone's asked me, Tim, why do you do the little live stream that you do? And guys, if those that me, I'm 52 years old, so I'm not looking that one day I'll be something big. My big hope one day is that if I'm on this earth, or if I've already gone, that somewhere someone will say, you know what, I remember that little podcast, and it started something somewhere.
Tim's very humble. I want the world, but Tim's very
There
humble.
you go.
Until next time, I'm Brian Mallard for the show. Tim over there doing awesome things behind the scenes most of the time. And Scott Phillips, awesome guest.